Hello! It's been months since I've had the opportunity to actually pull together a vlog for the garden. Um, as you can imagine, it's been a very busy summer. My son is not yet 2, so he has come to life this summer and it takes up a lot of my and my husband's bandwidth. Um, so, this is the first opportunity I've had to actually just sit down and chat through some of the footage that I've captured over the summer as the garden has grown and developed. Um, Man, it's been very gratifying to see it come together. This year has been the first year that it feels like my vision from probably like 3 years ago now actually exists in the front yard in some capacity. We had some trees removed last year, and that has paved the way for a lot more garden space. And for me to be a little bit more purposeful, I guess, with how everything gets laid out. It's not so much subject to what already exists, plus like right-of-ways and stuff like that with the property lines leading out to our street. So without further ado, we can talk through these. So circling back up on the seedlings, for instance, also I can see the critters are going to come join me. So we'll see if Valkyrie tries to eat the microphone. So circling up on the seedlings, that was the last thing that you folks would have seen from me, was starting some seeds and repotting up my tomatoes. It took me longer than I expected to get everything planted outside, and things also flourished a lot faster than I expected, like the tomatoes especially. I also was prioritizing spreading mulch with like a cardboard barrier underneath it to kill more grass and weeds that had kind of taken over, unfortunately, from being neglected last year. I was, like I said in my previous video, busy growing a human rather than the garden last year, so the weeds just got to do whatever they wanted. Anyway, so I'll cut in some pictures of like the pallets of mulch. I got 2 pallets of mulch. I actually tried to have it delivered as like cubic yards, like 10 cubic yards of mulch, which sounds unhinged. Maybe that doesn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything to me initially, and then a huge dump truck shows up that had no way of getting into our yard because of how like the power lines in our utilities land. So I had to cancel that and actually just order pallets. So I had 2 pallets out front. Definitely drew some attention when I was pulling things or pulling the bags off the pallets. Definitely had a few people stop and say, "Oh, hey, those pallets are getting a little shorter. The piles are dwindling." And I'm like, "Yep." Thanks to some very hard work. It's a great workout. Hi, kitty cat. So, speaking of tomatoes, we had a huge hot flash early in the season. So I was able to thankfully approach planting them a little bit earlier than I originally planned, but that was still not soon enough. They really grew fast, but it seems like their roots stunted when I transplanted them. So my lesson for next year is I really probably only need 4 to 6 weeks to grow some really robust tomato seedlings. So I won't start them so early because I think they just actually struggled because they got really leggy and they just did not do well once they went into the ground, especially because then it got even hotter after it warmed up enough for me to put them in the ground, and they kind of just cooked in the sun. I did have one where one of the suckers grew and has flourished and is developing lots and lots of purple Cherokee or Cherokee purple, whichever direction those words are supposed to go. So that one's doing well. But I wound up restarting, which, if you'll remember, it's for the 3rd time. So 3rd time's the charm. I do have 2 of each plant out front for each of the, like whether it was the Roma, the cherry, and the beefsteak tomatoes that I started. And then I did supplement, though, with just 2 Roma starts from my local Gerton's garden center. So I was like, I want to guarantee we get some tomatoes, and sauce tomatoes are usually our best bet. So I did get to finally eat one of the Sun Golds, which is the little cherry tomato that I started. I think it was 2 nights ago. So good. My son loved them as well too. He lives for tomatoes, so that was very, very gratifying. Like, we made it. 3rd time is truly the charm. Anyway, so I killed tomatoes, several times over this year, but also we have them to eat at least. So we came out all right in the end. Ooh, let's circle over to the red pots. So these ones, they took forever to rehydrate. These are some of the original pots that I established for my like container garden the first couple years that I was gardening. And I don't know if it just got like that cold over the winter, or if they were maybe not tended to as well last year is actually probably part of it. So they dried out quite a lot. It took me a long time to rehydrate. I had my garden knife in one hand and my hose in the other, and I just was like digging and like trying to like bury straw in, whatever I could to get some water to stick around in there. But it worked. We've got things growing and doing pretty well. I did carrots and some companion plants, which the only companion plant that's actually come up is the mint. Go figure. I also planted some shallots over there, some eggplant, and my sweet peppers are there. And then as you can see, the bachelor buttons are really stealing the show. I also have what I've been calling the Oreo bed out front, and that has beans, and then my spicy peppers out there. The beans did okay. The spicy peppers always seem to grow a little bit slower for me, so I can't tell if it's like the location or just because they're the spicy peppers that they're running a little bit slower. They're just doing fine. They're alive. There's a couple flowers on them, and we did get a fair number of beans, a couple dinners, servings. My baby just got home. I've got a Cukes and Zooks trellis. They're doing well. We've harvested a ton of zucchini already. I think that's every gardener's experience usually. They just are prolific. We really do like the yellow zucchini. Those have been really just savory and good. I also co-planted a ton of sunflowers, and I was initially really nervous about it because I got articles and videos early on in the season that indicated that they can inhibit like root growth to the plants around them. But everything's been doing well, so I feel like we've disproved that a little bit. And in fact, I would estimate with the number of pollinators that have come to my sunflowers, I think it's probably improving outcomes, improving pollination big time. On my squash trellis, case in point, again, I think the sunflowers have helped this guy. There are so many squash on it. Even since I grabbed this video, there's even more. They're growing huge, and the vines have overshot the other side of the arch. So I had to actually trim some up so that they don't impede my husband's ability to mow the front yard. So much vining. So that's very, very exciting. I also put I'm talking about potatoes shortly, but I put like a standard like jack-o'-lantern pumpkin out front too. And I really hope we get a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin from the garden this year. 2 years ago, I grew one, and I got to take my picture of my bump with my son at, well, he would have been 8 months along. I was 8 months pregnant, adjacent to the pumpkin, because that was like the comparative fruit or vegetable that he was sized at that point. So it would be great to carve one with my baby this year. Potatoes have been doing okay. I got some fingerling potatoes, so they're a little bit smaller. I wasn't too worried about putting them in containers. I think raised beds is probably the ideal way to go, so eventually I'd love to get some nice tall raised beds to consistently do potatoes in. But I am excited. I'll probably pull a video together, see if my bestie wants to come over and turn those inside out to harvest the potatoes together in a month or two here. They are starting to die back now as I record this. I think all the video I have of them right now is pretty green, and they are a spider's paradise. So many spiders have settled in around those. I have to be very careful when I move them for when my husband mows. We have tons of gorgeous flowers coming up. I did, like I said, sunflowers. We've got sweet peas and morning glories. I've not yet seen my moonflowers blossom, but that might take a little while. But I do have the joy of sharing that I was able to get hollyhocks to grow. They're a biennial flower, so you plant them one year, they just establish greenery and foliage, and then the next year is when they'll actually tower and present flowers. And they are so gorgeous. They're truly like a pitch black flower, and they're lovely. They fade a little bit into the sun to like kind of a burgundy shade, but they're still just beautiful. And they're still blossoming. Even the last couple blossoms have been going through this month even. So very, very happy to see those succeed. Our perennials are doing pretty well as well. This is the second year for my asparagus. I started them last year, so there's lots of ferning happening this year. Next year we should be able to do some proper harvest, which is quite exciting. I had walking onions planted out there early on, and they continue to thrive as they do. We love the walking onions. I cut just really the greens. I don't really harvest the bulbs on them, but the greens are great in ramen, so pro tip. They're also an heirloom too, which is kind of cool. So they were in my mother-in-law's garden and her father's garden before that, and maybe it goes even further back and I don't know, but for sure 3 generations have had this same, familial line of walking onions in our respective gardens. We had some raspberries that I planted last year that took nicely. They're growing lots of new shoots this year, or canes, I should say. I guess they're kind of like shoots, right? But we did grab another one from our local greenhouse as well, and that one has been giving us some tasty raspberries. My son runs outside pretty much daily down the tunnel and goes, "Blueberries, blueberries." So he loves being able to go pick his raspberries. I also started up some more strawberries. My son has a habit of picking them when they're still green, so we haven't had that many that are red that we've been able to try this summer. But I'm excited to see that patch grow and flourish. I explicitly put them pretty close to our pine tree. Both the raspberry, the rhubarb, and the strawberries are supposed to thrive with some level of acidity to the soil, and pine needles can add to that apparently. So strategically place them relatively close there. I'm also hoping that having just a little bit of shade will help them flourish too. I know full sun for the raspberries is pretty critical, but I feel like the strawberries might, offer fruit throughout more of the season if they don't get quite so hot. Ooh, so we've talked about the good, with everything coming up and coming together, the bad with the tomatoes, having to try them, 3 times over, but succeeding, thankfully. The ugly is I've been fighting creeping bellflower. I've known that it's in the yard since last season. I recognize that it's really invasive. I didn't know that before, like prior years. I literally took pictures of it because I thought it was so pretty. But it's super invasive where I am, at least. So I've made a point to smother it. Unfortunately, it spread underneath my pine tree out front, like a big, huge pine, the biggest tree probably on our property at this rate now. So like everything I've read has said, even if you're an organic gardener, like Roundup is the way to go to get rid of it. But since it's under my tree, I can't do that. I would kill the tree with Roundup. Maybe there's varieties that I'd be able to put under a tree, but I just don't want to risk it. I also don't want to compromise my garden, and like my little boy and my dog run through there. So I'm really hesitant to touch any sort of herbicides. So instead I've got black plastic and I'm smothering it as best I can. It'll probably take several years before I'll be able to plant anything else around there. But thankfully I didn't have big plans. I was gonna move some hostas over there or something like that. Nothing too major. Not a lot will grow in the shade there anyway. So maybe some native stuff later on when we know that the creeping bellflower is gone and won't just take over. It'd be nice to introduce that for our pollinators over there too. There's also ditch lily that I inadvertently planted out front, so that's another ugly one. Thankfully, I haven't seen any buckthorn. We did have a little patch of buckthorn around a tree that we had taken out, but it seems like taking the tree and having the stump ground took the buckthorn with it. They were very small little saplings, thankfully. The ditch lily though sucks because I actually transplanted it not realizing what it was, and then come this year I recognized oh, that's an orange lily. That's definitely the invasive variety. And it's funny how you start to see it all throughout your neighborhood when you start realizing something is invasive. Siberian squill is another one. I have not had a chance to tackle that in the springtime. So yeah, just something to bear in mind if you are a fellow startup gardener. Always validate against your local native, there's usually resources. I know Minnesota Wildflowers is one that I'm able to reference, for instance, but a lot of garden centers will sell stuff saying that it's a hardy perennial, or it's a hardy, or a creeping anything is also kind of scary. But these are pretty like the Siberian squill, orange daylily, and the creeping bellflower are all very, very pretty, and they're very resilient. So people, I think, are drawn to them like, oh, nobody can kill these. But that's also a bad thing. It inhibits our pollinators a lot, unfortunately. So just one call out, I guess, something that I've been, having to fight against that I hope more and more people start to recognize as not being ideal. There's a lot better plants to put out there if you want something low maintenance. But obviously that information is not readily available. Usually it takes a little bit of effort to research it. Other more like glimmers I can call out is our pollinators are doing great out there. I see so many different varieties of bees. I've seen tons of fireflies this year compared to even prior years. I think it was the first weekend in July, there was just tons all throughout our whole neighborhood, and it was truly magical because there were like fireworks for Independence Day celebrations, and then the fireflies running around or flying around, obviously. It was great. Or lightning bugs for people who don't know what fireflies are. That might just be a Minnesota thing. The birds have also been another thing. I love the sunflowers. I think that's my favorite thing that I've planted this year, honestly. Obviously, the produce is huge, but as far as things that have been like extra beneficial, I will never not plant so many sunflowers. I have a dwarf variety out there this year, several dwarf varieties actually out there this year. They're all gorgeous. They're all bringing in so many birds and pollinators, and most of them are like the multi-headed variety, so they keep putting out flowers throughout the entire summer so far. And they're just huge and impactful and happy. Cool. I'm probably leaving other things out. I'll kick myself later when I'm editing this in with all the videos and screenshots, but it's been a lovely year in the garden, and I wanted to make sure to take some time and share it with you guys. I know I'm not super consistent at posting, so I do appreciate everybody who taps in, and especially if you've made it to the end of this video, I especially appreciate you. And I hope you have a lovely day, lovely rest of your summer. Hopefully I'll tap in, like I said, when I do like some more harvest type videos. I might feature my bestie on the channel at that point. For those who don't know me as Spooky, she and I are Spooky and Kooky. We have our own channel that we like never upload to anymore, but it exists, so I can plug it, right? Yeah. Take care, everybody. Hope everybody's taking care of themselves too. Times are weird right now, and I think finding these little joys and the things that we can control is super, super critical when it feels like the world's spiraling just a little bit. So hug your loved ones. I send all my love. Mwah. Take care, guys.